Before this episode starts, I just want to briefly advertise that I'm now selling merch. Specifically, t-shirts, hoodies and mugs, illustrated with an image of my world touring unicycle. I also figured that instead of just using myself to promote the clothing, I'd recruit the help of Cullah, who looks a hell of a lot better in the stuff than I do. So if you'd like to pick something up and support me at the same time, please follow the top link in the description. Cheers. Now on with the episode. On the 28th of January 2017, I entered Vietnam. My aim? Cycle the length of Southeast Asia on a unicycle. This was all part of a much larger challenge, to become the first person to unicycle around the circumference of the globe. Heading south, I had my sights set for Singapore, as it marked the end point of this Southeast Asian leg. It also, excitingly, marked the end point of my second continent. 3.5 months and 2,000 miles after entering Vietnam, I'd reached Malaysia, and with just 500 miles until my finishing point at the southern tip of Singapore, the end was certainly in sight. Last time in the series, I'd teamed up with French couple Loic and Camille, who had also cycled from Europe. While riding through a palm plantation, we met some truck drivers who offered us some home-brewed fermented coconut milk. A lovely offer, but one glass was more than enough. Alright, recap over. Please enjoy this final instalment of Ed Unicycles Southeast Asia. The population of Thailand is overwhelmingly Buddhist. When I crossed into Malaysia, it was obvious to see the shift from Buddhism to Islam. I enjoyed hearing the call to prayer again, and with many mosques now frequently dotted along our route, they often gave us a good, safe option of somewhere to camp. One night, we stopped in the car park of this one, and while we waited for the imam to arrive, we cooked our night's meal. We've just turned up in a mosque. We want to ask if we can sleep here, but the imam, he doesn't arrive for another hour. So we're gonna cook our dinner, and then hopefully he'll arrive and he'll say, yeah, you can camp here.
Let's reopen.
When he did arrive, Loic went to ask him if we could camp in the car park that night.
And it's okay. It's okay, no problem for the night.
Fantastic. He agreed, but instead of the car park, he invited us to camp on the balcony of his mosque. And even let us use the showers. The next morning was a slightly sad one. Loic and Camille were planning to start travelling inland, whereas I was carrying on along the coast directly to Kuala Lumpur. Because of this, it made sense to part ways.
But it was a very good experience to cycling with Ed, yeah, and to speak English a little.
No, you spoke a lot. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak.
I really enjoyed the week that we'd spent together, and I wish for only friendly people and safety on the roads ahead of them. Really, really nice week. And I think, yeah, it's just one of the lovely things about travelling in this way, and I think travelling in general, is that you just don't know who you're going to meet. And often, especially if you're on the road riding, if you meet other cyclists, they're generally going to have a similar kind of mindset to you, and yeah, it just worked. It's just nice to ride with nice people. Alone again, and 100 miles from the capital, I pedalled onwards towards Kuala Lumpur. Thank you. Terima kasih. All right, give me a tea, an iced tea. Ooh, it's lovely out here. Exciting news! I am about 75 miles from Kuala Lumpur. Woo! So I'll be there tomorrow night. You can't see me, but I'm now on the highway. Not totally sure if bikes are allowed. I've been on this for about 20 miles, something like that. Getting a bit sore. Yeah, definitely tired now. Okay, Riding down the busy highway in the dark probably wasn't my smartest move, but I did reach Kuala Lumpur that night and met Isabel, Simon and Leo, friends of friends I'll be staying with while I was in the city. Because they're also keen cyclists, one morning Simon, Leo and I rode into the centre to attend KL Car-Free Morning.
Leo, pedal forwards. Right. Pedal forwards. Pedal forwards. Pedal forwards.
Every other Sunday morning, a 5-mile loop of Kuala Lumpur centre is closed to cars and open only for bicycles. Well, and unicycles.
I got you. Now just ride around. Coco, stay on the side with Ed.
Underneath the Petronas Towers, I met Henry and Wong, who coincidentally were out riding the loop on their unis.
Wow, is that a custom build?
Yeah,
You made it?
yes.
And incredibly, Henry had built the frame of his unicycle himself.
I love the seat.
This one very soft.
Yeah.
Nice.
But this wasn't the only random unicyclist encounter I'd have that day.
Do you mind saying how old you are?
I'm 58.
And
58 years old.
And Amy has just decided last month to learn how to unicycle,
Yes.
which is amazing.
You take that? Oh, I'm so happy. I'll let you know when I can cycle.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Love meeting unicyclists. And Amy was incredible. 58 years old and learning how to unicycle. Amazing. More of you watching this should do that.
Silly.
I'm watching you.
Get away! Get away, silly camera!
Simon and Isabel generously said that I could stay at theirs for as long as I needed. As I had months' worth of China footage to make into videos, I ended up staying 2 weeks in the city. I spent my time editing, catching up with friends on Skype, and as I needed to fix a crack in my unicycle's rear mudguard, I spent a day riding around in search for someone with an argon welder. I found one, and luckily the chap operating it did a neat job. One evening, I headed out with Simon to cycle around a racetrack. Sepang International Circuit is open a few nights a year to cyclists that just want to blast around its smooth tarmac.
I don't know how many people are here, but at a guess there's at least a few thousand.
It was great fun. Simon worked as head of secondary at Park City International School, so he invited me to take over a morning's assembly to talk about my World Unicycle Tour. I'm not going to lie, faced with entertaining a room full of hundreds of kids, I was a little daunted.
So, I'd like to introduce to you all Ed Pratt. So, I think you might want to have a little look at the back of the hall.
Hello. Okay. Hello, my name's Ed Pratt. I've been riding around the world for 2 years now on this ridiculous bike. And yes, it is as hard as it looks. The worst thing, or one of the worst things in Kazakhstan was the mosquitoes. They're just going in my mouth, they're going everywhere. This is just awful. Well, at least the sun's setting. Look at the sunset. Isn't that nice? Isn't that pretty? Yeah, enjoy that, because I can't.
Next thing is, I wondered if any of you had some questions. We don't have a huge amount of time, but does anybody have any questions they want to ask?
How did you shower? Did you ever get the shower?
There are times on this trip where I didn't shower for maybe 2 weeks.
How do you take the pictures with you in it?
So what I do is I stop, I'll then run off down the road, I'll put the camera down, I'll then run back to my bike, and then I'll cycle past. And once I've cycled past, I'll pick up the camera and then go.
Ed, do you get sores on your bottom?
Badly, yeah. So, have any of you done a long walking trip? So imagine how bad your feet get. They get blistered, they get sweaty. Imagine that, but on your bum.
Thank you very much, everyone. A final round of applause for Ed.
Thank you. Thank you. And have a nice day.
I reckon that assembly went pretty well, you know. Just a quick aside, I do just want to take the opportunity here to say that if you're looking for a public speaker to talk about their experiences unicycling around the world, I am available for hire. As this video was filmed 2 years ago, I've since completed my world tour and I'm back in the UK. So if you'd like to book me for your event, or present your school assembly like you just saw, please contact me. You'll find my email in the description of this video. Alright, I'll stop selling myself now. Back to the international school in Kuala Lumpur.
They were asking for his autograph and everything. Like they were coming up to me, these little children, like going, "Look at this," and showing me his autograph, scribbled on a bit of paper, a random bit of paper.
I drew the line flesh. They were like, "We done a paper, just sign my arms." No, got a piece of paper, I'll sign it. But I'm not going to start signing.
Fantastic.
Kids. So we're here at the big giant Buddha, biggest Buddha in the world. Haven't seen it yet. I think there's a lot of steps before we do.
And Ed thinks the face looks like Mr. Bean.
Okay, still in Kuala Lumpur. Been here for just over a week now. Today has been a video editing day. I'm still working on the China stuff. And it's weird because I'm editing stuff of Will, Super Cycling Man, and he is gonna come here today.
Alright, we're back.
Nice.
Part 3. Will and Ed cycle around the world.
Just a little adventure this time, getting some Indian food. But
That's a good adventure. It's possibly our best adventure yet.
He just keeps appearing, doesn't he? It was great to see Will for a 4th time, but unfortunately he wasn't sticking around, as he'd only flown to Kuala Lumpur for a quick visa run.
And I've just been taking it easy and enjoying Thailand. And I'm sort of got stuck in Bangkok. I've got to go and see a doctor in Bangkok to sort out my stomach. I've been getting some stomach issues. And not just the shits, something a bit worse than that.
Yeah.
So I've just gone on a visa run to Kuala Lumpur, and amazingly you're in town. It's on a video that I took. She says, "Oh, I remember Ed, he's so cute with his long hair." And I was like, "Oh, you think he's cute, do you?"
Will had to go out to the embassy the next day, but when he got back to Simon and Isabel's, we decided to make the most of the few hours we were back in the same place, and head out on a little adventure.
Here we go! You're so cheeky.
We were heading for the entrance to the Taba Trail, a hike that would take us up Bukit Tabur, a small mountain in the northeast of KL. When we arrived, we discovered yellow warning tape draped all over the entrance. Simon had told us that sadly, a few hikers have recently lost their lives falling off the mountain here, and in response, the Forestry Commission had officially closed off this route. Now, if we were sensible people, we'd have turned around at this point. However, let me just remind you that you're dealing with one guy attempting to ride around the world in a superhero costume, and another doing the same thing on a unicycle. We're not sensible, and we were definitely going in.
Cool, well done, Will.
My heart is racing.
It's a bit extreme, isn't it?
Just to reassure you that we weren't being totally stupid here, Simon had told us that he'd recently taken his son Leo up on this hike, and that he thought as long as we were careful, we'd be absolutely fine. But I certainly wouldn't have called it a hike. More of a scramble, with the aid of ropes and metal anchor points on the rock for safety. It was great fun.
Ed,
What?
I was following you. It's always a bad idea. Smell the difference.
Nice.
Almost at the top. Not quite.
To celebrate reaching the top, we broke out the sweaty curry we've been carrying in our backpacks for hours.
A chicken puff curry thing and some curry sauce.
On top of a little mountain
In Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur, yeah.
It may not have been on quite the same scale as cycling through China together, but it was equally just as enjoyable to scramble up a hill and share a curry. Even if Will did insist on inhaling it.
Chug.
God, Will.
Oh my god, that's good. Genuinely the most tired I've been.
So that was it for our 4th encounter.
And genuinely the most scared.
Where we'd meet next was anyone's guess.
Can't get away from you, Will.
And the 5th time?
In the UK, I think.
You never know. You never know what Super Cycling Man's going to do. Alright. I better go and pick up the visa for Thailand.
Farewell.
Au revoir, as they say in Kuala Lumpur.
It was soon time for me to leave as well. I thanked Isabel, Simon and Leo, said goodbye and hit the road once more. With only 300 miles remaining to Singapore, I was fueled with excitement to complete my tour of Southeast Asia. Four days after leaving KL, I cut away from the coast and headed inland towards Johor Bahru. This city would be my last in Malaysia, and luckily for me, a Brit from my home county, Somerset, had offered me a bed for when I arrived. However, not unlike riding into Kuala Lumpur, to get there I didn't really have any other choice than to take the busy highway.
That's the police! But they're being very kind. I shouldn't be on this road, but they're going to escort me the next 10 kilometres. To where I need to be.
I arrived just before a storm hit and found Mark, who'd first emailed me 2 years ago.
We both went to Wellington School, and Ed posted that the school posted that Ed was doing this crazy cycle around the world, so I had to look it up and saw on his route he was coming via Johor, so I just emailed him to say, look me up when you get here, and he said, it will be a long time.
2 years, I'd say that was a long time. Mark and his wife took care of me extremely well and fed me up for my final push to Singapore. With just 25 miles left to ride, the next morning I hit the road and started my final day.
Onto the border. To get through this traffic light, I think I need to be over there, and I don't know how to get over there. Wow.
I was aiming for the Causeway, a 1 kilometre strip of man-made land that would take me over the Straits of Johor to my final country in Asia.
Oh yeah, I think this is it. I think this is the border. Do I need this one as well? This is the Causeway to Singapore.
And after 2.5 hours of waiting in a queue of motorcyclists, I'm in Singapore.
Okay, here we go, Ed. Here we go. Let's go behind this big guy.
But my final destination wasn't just to reach Singapore. I wanted to find the most southern tip of Singapore, because today I wasn't only completing my Southeast Asian journey, but also my entire journey across Asia.
Change! Change! Just change! Yeah! Green light! This ain't so hard. I thought Singapore was going to be mental traffic.
It had been really tough going riding through Singapore, but I was now almost at the bottom.
Just coming onto the bridge now to Sentosa.
Sentosa lay claim to having the official most southerly point on continental Asia. So naturally, this is where I was heading.
I think there is some dispute between Malaysia and Singapore, whatever. For me, this is going to be the bottom of my Asia and of my ride.
My final obstacle was a short, narrow rope bridge. I pushed the unicycle over, and finally I'd made it. There were many tourists there. This group of girls sitting on a tree asked if I could take a photo for them. And there were many other people at this spot, none of them knowing that I'd spent the last 2 years of my life riding a unicycle 13,000 miles to be here. I was tired and dirty, but triumphant.
Asia, baby!
So that's it. I just crossed my second continent and it was time to celebrate. Right? Well, not quite. Now, I don't know about you, but looking at my map, to me there seems to be a point on Sentosa that was just a tad further south. Knowing that I'd never be satisfied unless I at least checked it out, I headed back over the rope bridge in pursuit of what I believe to be the real southernmost point of Asia.
I've just torn my way into a gated community. I shouldn't be here, this is a residents only place. But I spoke to some of the residents and they kind of let me in.
And so, with those last few hundred feet of pedalling, I'd arrived. For real this time. my GPS, from what I can see, this is it. I'm satisfied with that. But I don't feel totally satisfied until I get this wheel in the water. So we're gonna get it down there.
Black holes like grapes on a vine.
Completing Asia was a massive moment. Knowing that continent number 2 was under my belt gave me confidence that all of this was indeed possible. I'll be the first to admit that what I'm undertaking here isn't easy. Unicycling around the world continues to be the toughest thing I've ever attempted. Even after 2 years of acclimatising to life on the road, it's still hard to be away from friends and family. And it still can be difficult to motivate myself every day to pack up my tent and start pedalling. Especially when I know I'm going to be aggravating existing saddle sores riding this very impractical mode of transport. So why then do I keep at it? I think stubbornness certainly plays a role. I've invested 2 years of my life into this endeavour. I'm over halfway, and I need to finish this. But I think more importantly, it's simply that despite missing home and having a sore bum, I seriously just love what I get to do every day. The freedom of being out in the world with no fixed schedule other than to cycle in a certain direction is incredible. And if you hadn't already gathered from my videos, I get a tremendous amount of pleasure sharing my love of unicycling, and I'm extremely grateful that I have this opportunity in my life to pursue this ridiculous challenge. Despite the physical tests of unicycling thousands of miles, climbing up arduous mountains, and collapsing from dehydration in the ridiculously humid climate, I'll really miss travelling through Southeast Asia. That, in no small part, is due to the incredibly warm-hearted people I met here. I'm so thankful that even though I turned up as a total stranger, I was often greeted like an old friend. Thank you everyone that supported me on this leg of the trip, be that by providing me water to drink, a floor of a bicycle shop to sleep on, a hot breakfast to enjoy, entertaining company for a few miles, a police escort for safety, a ride in a truck to Bangkok, or an invitation to a wedding celebration. As my ride moves eastwards into Australia and back to the Western world, I only hope that I'm welcomed quite as warmly there as I was in Southeast Asia.